The story I am going to tell is based on fiction and does not reflect real events. Enjoy listening. Sophie's heart raced as a strange and frightening thought entered her mind. Could her husband be putting something in her tea every evening to make her sleep? The idea was scary, almost unbelievable, but the way she had been feeling lately made her wonder if it could be true. She decided she had to find out for herself. That night, when Adrian turned his back for a moment, Sophie quietly poured her tea down the sink. Her hands trembled as she did it. The weight of what she was starting to suspect made her feel sick. She went to bed that night pretending to be asleep. She closed her eyes, kept her breathing slow and steady, but her mind was wide awake. Her ears listened carefully to every sound. She was waiting to see what would happen next. What she discovered that night would change everything. It left her shocked and broken. It felt like her whole world had been turned upside down before. We go deeper into Sophie's story. Please share in the comments which country you're watching this video from. Settle in for a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Sophie didn't feel like herself anymore. She felt empty, like something inside her had disappeared. Just 6 months ago, her life in Vienna was full of energy and purpose. She had a good job as a financial analyst at a respected firm. She was proud of her work and her skills. Numbers and data made sense to her. She was confident, smart, and always in control. But now, everything felt like a struggle. Every day at work was difficult. Even the simplest tasks seemed hard. Her eyes would blur when she looked at spreadsheets. She couldn't concentrate. She made small mistakes at first, things that could be fixed easily, but then the mistakes became bigger, more noticeable. Her co-workers began to look at her strangely. She could feel their confusion and concern. They didn't say much, but Sophie knew they were starting to question her abilities. The fear of being called into her boss's office filled her with anxiety. She imagined Mr. Wagner's serious face, asking her why her work had become so sloppy. She could almost hear the disappointment in his voice. It made her feel ashamed. Home was supposed to be a place where she could rest and feel safe, but that wasn't happening either. When she walked into their apartment, with its wooden floors and cozy lamps, she didn't feel peace. Instead, she felt tired and numb. Making dinner took all her strength. Just chopping vegetables felt like climbing a mountain. Her body felt heavy, her mind slow. After dinner, Adrian would always bring her a cup of tea. It had become a nightly habit. "Drink this, my love," he would say with a smile, handing her the warm mug. His voice was gentle, his eyes kind. "You're working too hard. This will help you relax." Sophie couldn't deny that she was exhausted. Maybe the tea really was helping her sleep, but something about it felt strange. She didn't know why, but every night after drinking it, she would feel extremely drowsy, more than just tired. It was like her whole body shut down all at once. Her head would spin, her eyelids would grow heavy, and she would barely make it to the bedroom before collapsing onto the bed. Then she would sleep, but it wasn't a normal sleep. It was deep, too deep, like falling into a black hole. She wouldn't dream, or sometimes she would, but the dreams were strange and frightening. She saw dark shadows in the corners of her mind, heard whispers she couldn't understand. She would wake up feeling like something terrible had happened during the night, even if she couldn't remember it. Each morning she woke up exhausted, her head aching. It felt like she had been drugged. She couldn't explain it, but her body and mind were not her own anymore. The symptoms kept getting worse. She wasn't just tired. She felt confused. She couldn't think clearly. Her thoughts were jumbled. She kept forgetting things, important things. She lost her keys 3 times in 1 week. She forgot what she was supposed to buy at the store. She even missed an important deadline at work because she didn't remember the meeting at all. One afternoon, during a team meeting, she froze. She couldn't remember the name of Marcus, a co-worker she had known for almost 10 years. Everyone looked at her in confusion as she stumbled and gave an awkward laugh, pretending it was a joke. But she was embarrassed. She rushed to the bathroom and cried quietly, staring at herself in the mirror, wondering what was happening to her. Adrian, her husband, always acted like the perfect, caring partner. He brought her tea every night, asked her about her day, hugged her when she was upset. But something had changed. He seemed more distant now, even though he was still doing all the same things. His smile looked fake sometimes, forced. His eyes didn't sparkle the way they used to. He got annoyed easily. If Sophie misplaced a coffee cup or didn't answer him right away, he snapped. Then he would apologize, saying he was just stressed. From work, he worked at a big investment company, and he said the pressure was getting to him. Sophie tried to talk to him about how bad she was feeling. She told him she was tired all the time, confused, scared, but Adrian just brushed it off. "You're just overworked," he said, hugging her tightly. "Let's go on a little vacation, maybe to the Alps. A week away will fix everything." His voice was soothing, but Sophie's instincts told her something was wrong, very wrong. Gut told her that the problem wasn't work, it wasn't burnout, it was something deeper. She didn't want to believe it, but a dark thought crept into her mind. What if Adrian was the reason she felt this way? One evening, as Adrian handed her the usual cup of tea, her heart began to pound. She looked at the tea, the steam curling softly above it, and felt a wave of fear. What if he was putting something in it? What if Adrian was drugging her on purpose? The thought was crazy, but it wouldn't go away. She couldn't ignore it anymore. She remembered her best friend, Elise, a pharmacist who had always been logical and calm, someone Sophie trusted completely. A week earlier, they had met for coffee at a quiet cafe near Elise's pharmacy. It was a cool autumn afternoon. The smell of cinnamon and coffee beans filled the air. Over warm drinks, Sophie had opened up to Elise about her strange symptoms, how tired she was all the time, how confused and anxious she felt, and how disconnected she had become from herself. Elise had listened carefully. She always did. "Are you taking any new medications?" she asked. Sophie shook her head. "No, just vitamins. And the tea Adrian makes." Elise raised an eyebrow. "What kind of tea?" Sophie shrugged. "Chamomile. Sometimes black. He always makes it, so I'm not sure." Elise leaned closer. "Sophie, if the symptoms don't go away, you need to get a blood test. It could be a deficiency. Or something else. Better to be safe." At the time, Sophie had smiled and thanked her, but she didn't think much of it. Now, Elise's words echoed in her mind. Something else. The next day, during her lunch break, she called Elise from her office, her hands shaking. "Elise, it's me," she said, trying to sound calm but failing. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." "What's wrong?" Elise asked quickly. "Are you okay?" Sophie took a deep breath and told her everything. The sleepiness after the tea, the confusion, the memory loss, the fear that Adrian was doing something to her. Elise was silent for a moment, then she spoke in a serious tone. "Sophie, listen to me. Some sedatives can cause everything you just described. Fatigue, memory problems, feeling disconnected. And they can be put into drinks very easily. They dissolve fast and have no taste." Sophie felt like she couldn't breathe. "You think Adrian is drugging me?" "I don't know," Elise replied carefully. "But you need to find out. Stop drinking the tea. Pretend to drink it, then pour it out when he's not looking. Pay attention to how you feel, and start writing things down, dates, times, anything strange. You need proof." Sophie thanked her and hung up. Her mind was spinning. The idea that Adrian, her husband, her partner, could be poisoning her felt like a knife in the chest. But she had to know the truth. That night, Sophie sat at the kitchen table as Adrian handed her the tea. "Here you go, love," he said with a smile. "You had a tough day." She accepted the cup with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her hand shook as she held it. The tea smelled like chamomile, but there was something else, something faint, a chemical scent she couldn't name. She pretended to sip it. "It tastes different tonight," she said, watching his reaction. "Maybe I'm just tired." Adrian's smile flickered. "Just for a second. Maybe I steeped it too long," he said casually. "Could be," Sophie replied, yawning on purpose. "I think I'll go to bed early." She walked to the bedroom, trying to act normal, but her heart was pounding. She crawled into bed and lay very still, pretending to fall asleep. A few minutes later, she heard Adrian's footsteps. He stood at the door, then came closer. She felt his hand brush her shoulder gently. "Sophie," he whispered, "are you asleep?" She didn't move. She kept her breathing slow and even. After a pause, he walked away. She heard him go into the living room. The sound of the computer clicking filled the silence. And that's when Sophie knew something was very wrong. Sophie lay still in bed, her eyes shut tightly even though her mind was wide awake. Her heart was beating fast, her breathing steady and deep to make it look like she was asleep. She heard Adrian's footsteps fade into the living room. After a few minutes, she heard the soft sound of her laptop being opened. Her breath caught in her throat. What was he doing? Why was he using her computer when he thought she was asleep? Carefully, slowly, Sophie pushed the blanket off and sat up. She tiptoed to the bedroom door and peeked out, making sure not to make a sound. The lights in the living room were dim, but the blue glow of her laptop screen lit up Adrian's face. He didn't see her. He was too busy typing. Sophie stayed hidden in the hallway, just around the corner. Her hands were cold. Her legs shook. Adrian was going through her personal files. She saw him copying things onto a USB drive. He was taking pictures of documents with his phone, her passport, her tax returns, her bank statements. Then he opened her online banking account. Her heart dropped as she watched him move through the pages like he had done it many times before. He didn't even hesitate at the security questions. He knew all the answers. Then something even worse happened. She saw him pull up a loan application. It was in her name. He was using her information to take out money without her knowing. Sophie had to cover her mouth to stop herself from gasping. What was he planning to do? Why was he doing this? She stepped back quietly and returned to bed, pulling the covers over herself. Her body shook as she lay there, pretending to be deeply asleep. A few minutes later, Adrian came back into the room. He stood by the bed for a moment. She felt his hand on her hair. "Sleep tight, my love," he whispered. "Everything's under control." His words made her skin crawl. They no longer sounded sweet, they sounded dangerous. She stayed awake the rest of the night, listening to the quiet hum of the television from the living room and the sound of Adrian snoring on the couch. Her mind raced. Everything made sense now. The tea, the dreams, the fog in her head. He had been drugging her to keep her unconscious, so he could do all of this behind her back. The next morning, after Adrian left for work, Sophie locked herself in her office and called Elise. "It's true," she said, her voice shaking. "He's been stealing from me. I saw him. He was on my laptop, taking my files, using my bank account. He's even trying to get a loan with my name." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Elise said firmly, "You need help, Sophie. You need a lawyer right away." "I already contacted one," Sophie said. "His name is Matthias Kogmer. I'm meeting him today." "Good," Elise replied. "I'm coming over. We're packing your important things and getting you out of there. You can stay with me." Within an hour, Elise arrived with a duffel bag, a few boxes, and a determined look in her eyes. "We're taking everything he might try to use," she said. "Passports, documents, jewelry, cash, anything important." They moved quickly. Sophie grabbed her passport, her birth certificate, her marriage license, and the keys to her car. She unlocked the small metal box where she kept her savings and her grandmother's necklace. Elise made sure no important paper was left behind in drawers or cabinets. "We'll keep all of this at my place," Elise said, zipping up the duffel bag. "I've got a safe. He won't be able to touch any of it." Sophie nodded, tears stinging her eyes. She felt like her world had been torn apart. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. The man she had loved, trusted, built a life with Hyde had been lying to her all along. They sat for a few minutes in the quiet apartment. Sophie looked around at the home she had shared with Adrian now. It just felt like a place full of shadows and secrets. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "I loved him, Elise. I trusted him with everything." "I know," Elise said, squeezing her hand. "But now you know the truth. And you're not alone. We're going to fix this." Sophie hugged her tightly. "Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You don't have to do this alone," Elise said. "Let's get you to your lawyer." The ride to Matthias Kogmer's office was quiet. Sophie stared out the window, her thoughts spinning. She couldn't stop seeing Adrian's face in her mind, his fake smile, his careful lies. Her chest hurt from the betrayal. Matthias's office was calm and professional, with tall bookshelves and the smell of polished wood. He stood to greet her, a kind but serious look on his face. "Sophie, please come in," he said. She sat down across from him and pulled the papers from her bag. "I read everything you sent. I'm ready." "Good," Matthias said. "The first thing we need to do is freeze all of your bank accounts and credit cards. We can't give him any more chances to access your money." He slid a few documents toward her. Sophie signed each one, her hand shaking. It felt scary, but also like she was finally taking control. "Next," Matthias continued, "you need to change every password you have. Email, banking, social media, anything Adrian might know. Make them long and random. Store them somewhere safe." Sophie nodded and began changing them right there on her phone. "Then we report the fraud," Matthias said. "We contact the credit bureau and let them know someone is using your identity. That will protect you from any more fake loans or damage to your name." Sophie listened carefully. Every step he gave her made her feel a little stronger, and last, he said gently, "You need to leave the apartment. Stay with someone you trust, at least until we sort all of this out." "I'm moving in with Elise tonight," she said, her voice firmer now. "Good choice," Matthias said. "You're doing everything right. Just keep going. I'll be with you every step of the way." When she left the office, Sophie felt a strange mix of fear and relief. She had frozen her accounts. She had changed her passwords. She had reported the fraud. She was taking back control of her life. That evening, she arrived at Elise's apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The small space was warm and filled with books, plants, and soft blankets. It didn't feel fancy, but it felt safe as Sophie unpacked her things. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. It was Adrian. Her heart pounded. She answered. "Sophie, where are you?" His voice was shaky. "Why are you ignoring me? I've been calling all day." "What do you want?" Sophie said coldly. "You're scaring me," he said. "What's going on? Why are you acting like this?" "I know everything, Adrian," she said, her voice steady. "The lies, the files, the loan. I saw it all." There was silence on the line. Then, in a small voice, Adrian said, "What are you talking about?" Sophie's anger boiled over. "Don't play dumb. I know about the tea. I know you've been drugging me. You've been stealing from me, lying to me. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to the police." "Sophie, no," he said quickly. "That's not true. I love you. I'd never hurt you, love," she repeated, her voice full of disbelief. "You call this love? You poison me. You plan to ruin me. I'm done. Adrian, I'll make sure you pay for what you've done." She hung up the phone and dropped it onto the couch. Her hands were shaking, but inside her something had changed. Her fear was still there, but now it was mixed with strength. That night, Matthias sent her something that made everything worse but also confirmed everything. He had gotten copies of emails between Adrian and a woman named Lena, who worked with him. In the messages, they talked about stealing Sophie's money, taking out a fake loan, and running away together to Spain. They laughed at how clueless Sophie was. Lena said she wanted a fancy car and a big apartment in Madrid. Adrian told her, Don't worry, we'll have everything soon. Sophie's practically ours. Reading those words made Sophie feel sick. She cried. Elise held her close, wiping her tears. You're stronger than him, Elise whispered. You've found the truth, and now you're free. Sophie nodded, still crying, but knowing deep down that Elise was right. She had uncovered the truth, and now it was time to rebuild her life. The next few weeks were some of the hardest in Sophie's life, but they were also the beginning of something new. After the emails between Adrian and Lena were confirmed, Sophie knew there was no going back. She wasn't just walking away from a marriage, she was escaping a trap. Elise stayed by her side through every step. They called it Operation Sophie's Freedom, trying to smile through the pain. But underneath the jokes and late-night tea in Elise's little kitchen, Sophie was grieving, not just for Adrian but for everything she thought she had. She filed for divorce immediately. Matthias helped her with every paper, every call. He reported Adrian's actions to the police. Sophie gave them the emails, the USB logs, and even a sample of the tea she had poured into the potted plant. Elise had saved the soil, just in case. When the tests came back, they confirmed Sophie's fears. The tea had traces of a sedative, one that could cause memory loss, confusion, and deep unconsciousness. It explained everything: the fog, the strange dreams, the blank mornings. Adrian was officially under investigation for identity fraud, poisoning, and financial theft. Sophie knew the legal process might take months, maybe years, but just knowing the truth was already helping her breathe easier. Living with Elise was like pressing pause on her old life. It gave Sophie space to heal. Elise's apartment was small, but cozy, with big windows that let in the morning sun. Sophie started writing in a journal every day, just to keep her mind clear. She wrote about what happened, how she felt, and what she wanted her future to look like. She wrote letters to herself, letters she never sent to Adrian, letters to her past and her future. Elise helped her set up a new bank account. She bought a new phone and a new laptop, nothing Adrian could access. She even created a new email address and deleted the old one. It was like starting from zero, and at first it was scary. But day by day, Sophie began to feel a little lighter. Work was still hard. She had taken 2 weeks off, and even when she returned, she wasn't sure she could handle it. But her manager, Mr. Wagner, surprised her. He called her into his office, and instead of questioning her mistakes, he said, Sophie, I'm glad you're back. We missed your brilliance. He offered her a slower schedule for the next month and told her she could talk to HR anytime. Sophie hadn't expected kindness, but it reminded her that not everyone was like Adrian. With time, her confidence returned. The fog in her mind slowly cleared. She started catching small errors before they became big ones. She remembered names and dates. She finished her tasks early, sometimes even smiling while doing them. She wasn't just surviving, she was rebuilding. One weekend, Elise gave her a gift, a sketchbook and a set of watercolor pencils. You used to love drawing, she said. Maybe it's time to pick it back up. Sophie stared at the blank pages for a long time before she finally made her first mark. A simple sketch of a tree outside the window. The lines were shaky, but it felt good. Day by day, she added more coffee cups, strangers on the tram, quiet corners of cafes. Art became her therapy. She started traveling on weekends, just small trips at first. A train ride to Salzburg, a solo walk around the lake, then Prague, then Budapest. She took her sketchbook everywhere, sitting in small cafes and drawing what she saw. She smiled at strangers. She laughed again. She cried sometimes too, but less often. One afternoon in Vienna, she stood in front of a painting at the art museum. It was a portrait of a woman standing in a storm, her hair wild, her eyes full of quiet strength. Sophie stared at it for almost an hour. Something about it felt familiar. It was how she felt inside, tired, weathered, but still standing. Still, here she went home that night and painted her own version. Not a copy, but a reflection. She called it The Storm Past. She hung it in Elisa's apartment above the bookshelf. It was the first time she felt proud of herself in a long time. Meanwhile, the divorce moved forward. Adrian tried to contact her several times, but she blocked every number. He even sent a letter once, full of fake apologies and twisted explanations. She burned it without reading the second page. The courts froze his access to any joint accounts. They seized the loan documents. Lena quit her job at the investment firm. No one had seen her since. Sophie had one final meeting with Adrian at the courthouse. It was short, official. He looked thinner, older. He didn't meet her eyes. She didn't say a word. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she just said, I'm done. When it was over, she stepped outside and took a deep breath. The air felt different. She was free. Months passed. Sophie moved into her own apartment, just a few blocks from Elise's. It was small but bright. She filled it with plants and art. And quiet. She left the job at her old firm and took a new role at a non-profit that helped women in crisis. The pay wasn't as high, but the work mattered. Every time she helped someone start over, it reminded her of herself. She started going to therapy. She joined a support group for survivors of emotional abuse. There, she met other women who had been tricked, silenced, tanned. She shared her story with them. At first, her voice trembled. but each time she told it, the weight became a little lighter. And then, one chilly autumn morning, it happened. Sophie was walking down a street in Vienna, leaves crunching under her boots. She had just come from a meeting with her new boss and had stopped for a coffee. As she stepped out of the cafe, she saw him. Adrian. He stood across the street, leaning against a wall, looking tired and worn. He was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous expression on his face. He looked up, and their eyes met. For a long moment, neither of them moved. His eyes were full of something: regret, maybe guilt or fear. But Sophie didn't care. She didn't stop. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just turned her head and walked away. Her heart beat calmly. Her steps were steady, and she didn't look back. That night, Sophie made tea for herself. Real tea, with honey and lemon. She sipped it slowly by the window of her new home, wrapped in a blanket. The city lights twinkling outside. She thought about everything she had lost and everything she had gained. She thought about Elise, who had saved her, about Matthias, who had guided her, about the version of herself she had nearly forgotten. She was no longer scared. She was no longer lost. She was free, and though the road ahead was still uncertain, it belonged to her now, all of it.